Good morning, everyone. Hi, it's Nancy Nardin with Smart Selling Tools. I'd like to welcome you to our webinar today. We hold these sales stack webinars almost every week. So if you'd like to join us every week, go to our website and look for the events menu and go ahead and sign up for our series and you'll get information on each one of these. Today, I'm really happy to introduce to everyone Matt Benati, the founder and CEO of LeadGnome, and Nick Ezzo, the VP of Demand Generation at Host Analytics, as you can see right there. Hello, everyone.
Hi, Nancy.
Yeah, good. And Matt's just experiencing his first snow, I hear, today. So we're kind of calling in from all different places. I'm in California. Nick, I forget where you're calling in from.
Redwood City, California.
Okay, so you've probably got nice weather too then.
Yep.
Oh,
Boston
yeah.
got its first inch today.
All right. That's not too bad for Boston.
No, not bad at all.
All right. Well, let's get into this. So what we like to do in these webinars is two parts. One will be, the first part will be just me and Nick having a conversation and talking about some of the challenges that he was experiencing, why he decided he needed to do something, why he chose LeadGnome, and kind of what the outcomes were, what he's measuring, what things, how life looks today versus how it looked before LeadGnome. And then that'll take about 20 minutes. After that, then we're going to call Matt back on. He'll disappear here during our conversation, and then we'll call Matt back on, and he's going to take us through LeadGnome, show you how it works so you can get a real view of it and understand it and what the product is. So with that, Matt, I'm going to say goodbye to you for a little bit,
Have
and
fun,
then
guys.
have ask some questions of Nick. So we'll see you. We'll see you momentarily. All right. So Nick, I have a number of questions that I want to ask you, but before I get started, why don't you give us a little bit of background in terms of your organization and maybe a little bit about what you were looking to do?
Sure. So Host Analytics, what do? We sell a finance application to CFOs and people who work for her or him. So we sell to corporate finance, and we are a SaaS or cloud-based company, and I'm in charge of demand gen. So that's the company. That's what we do, and our buyer is pretty much the the cheapest person in the world, the CFO who doesn't want to spend any money. So our challenges are to try to get in front of these CFOs and get in front of the people who work for her or him, and to that point, having good data, having a solid foundation of contacts and leads and accounts is super important for us. And so what we were trying to solve for was to augment the data that we currently have in our data set, in our Salesforce and Marketo instance, to make sure that we have the cleanest and most up-to-date possible data.
Okay, and our webinar today was promoted as, how do you go about targeting specific accounts and penetrating those accounts? So given the fact that you sell to the finance industry, what was the challenge that you were facing? What was the trigger that made you say, you know what, we got to do something differently so we can reach these accounts better?
Yeah, so two things. One is that we have a sort of a complex product, so that there's a buying committee. It's never just one person. You have to really talk to all the people within finance, so that the forward-looking budgeting and planning people, the backward-looking accountants and controllers, and then the overall CFO/VP of finance. So we really have at least 3 different audiences within each account, and that was super important for us to make sure that we have the top 3 to 5 contacts per account. That was number one. Secondly, what we've been doing, we do a lot of email marketing, like many companies do. Email is still alive and well, even in 2016, 2017, despite rumors of its demise. So we do a lot of email marketing still, and up till now, we've been mining the out-of-office replies by hand, having an intern or a junior person on the team go through and try to figure out what intelligence we can glean from these very important out-of-office replies. Quick story, a few years ago at my last company, my marketing director and I, we used to talk about, man, it's so tedious to do this. I just wish somebody would create this product, invent this product, and if they don't invent it, I'm going to. And so me and let's call him Brian C. from Buffalo, New York, to protect his identity. Brian C. and I used to joke around. We'd love for somebody to invent this thing. Brian C. contacted me a couple of years ago and said, Nick, oh my God, somebody invented this technology. It's LeadGnome. You got to go check them out. And so, I reached out to Matt, and we've been able to automate the process of mining the out-of-office replies for all that great information that's in there that Matt will talk about in a little bit.
Yeah, that's got to make you feel good, Matt. Well, I can see your video. I can't hear you.
Yeah, sure, guys. Sorry, I was on mute there. But yes, it's great to have folks that are obviously looking for this problem, understand the value of it, and make good use of it.
Yeah, so that's one good part. And the other is that they've actually discovered you, right? As a smaller company, that can be hard sometimes. Okay, so you're talking, Nick, about mining emails. So you're sending out campaigns, and then you mine the automatic replies. But let me ask you this: why does that matter? If you presumably you have a good list, and if you need to augment that or pen that or get more names of companies, there's lots of databases and sales intelligence companies out there. Why not just stick with them? Is that good enough?
Yeah, good question. So we do have practically every data source in the world. We've got all the major ones that you can imagine, and we populate our database with those. However, 20% of people leave companies every year, minimum. And so if your database is 100% perfect today, let's just imagine for a second, Nancy, that you've got the perfect data set, all your emails are correct, all your direct dial phone numbers are correct, everybody's still with the same company, just wait a year, and your data will then be 80% complete. Wait 2 years, it'll be 60% complete. Over a 5-year period, theoretically, your database will turn over 100%. So it's a constant battle for us. It's something we take very seriously, and we try to stay on top of it. So because of that, why is this important for us? Well, if you have a perfect campaign, meaning a campaign that is like 100% effective, you get every single person to click, and your data is only 80% effective or valid, then really you're limiting your campaign to 80% effectiveness right out of the gate. So the one thing we do have control over, I can't make people click on emails, but I can make sure that I have the right people and the highest quality data in my campaign. So that's essentially why having good quality data is important for us.
Okay, so tell me a little bit about the mining of it. Why is the mining of an email, and what does that mean exactly, and why is it so important? What are objectives do you accomplish with LeadGnome in mining emails?
Yeah, well, so when people send out emails, a lot of us marketers care about things like, okay, how many people bounced and how many people unsubscribed, but many don't stop to consider the valuable information that's stored in the out-of-office reply. When somebody goes on vacation, many times they'll go into their Gmail or Outlook and put a lot of great information like, hey, this is Nick, I'm sorry, I'm out of the office for the next week. In my absence, please contact Mary Smith or John Jones. And here's their telephone number, their email address, and maybe this is my relationship with them. Please contact my peer or my supervisor or somebody who does the same job as me. All of this great information is put into the out-of-office reply. Smart marketers and smart sales development reps have been mining this stuff for years, but we tend to do it manually. So the out-of-office reply does contain a lot of great information that many people don't even think about using, but we consider it to be a gold mine.
All right, and at the beginning we talked about how there's multiple numbers of people at each of the account that you have to deal with. So I presume if you only have one of those people's name in your database, then if they're out of office, the colleague they're probably going to send you to is somebody else that you should be talking to.
Absolutely. It's either somebody who does the same job as them in a larger company, or in many cases it's their supervisor, which we want to know as well. Who's that person's manager? So through our email marketing, we can have our database kind of grow, kind of automatically, using LeadGnome. We send out emails, maybe even emails on holidays and holiday weekends, and sit back and wait for the leads to flow in, and we can then have our accounts filled out without having to do much in the way of pulling leads.
Okay, wait a minute. So you just said that you will intentionally, did I hear that right? You'll intentionally send out an email on a holiday or something like that?
It does seem like it goes against marketing best practices. Many people don't want to send out emails on any time or day except for Tuesdays and Thursdays between 10 a.m. and 11 a.m. But we try to be creative and give people something interesting. We send out blog roundups on Saturdays or Sundays. We did a Black Friday email just a week or two ago after Thanksgiving. So on that Friday, we sent out a roundup of our best performing content, and we tried to make it kind of fun, and it looked like a Black Friday flyer. And instead of saying 50% off sale, it was save 50% of your finance department's time by moving off of Excel. And it was a fun and interesting way to engage with our audience. And some people clicked on it. At the end of the day, I want to give somebody something interesting to learn about and click on. So I'm not just trying to spam people for the sake of spamming them, but if I send it during like a holiday weekend, like the Friday after Thanksgiving, I will get intentionally, I will get a large amount of out-of-office replies, and I'll be able to take those and process them through LeadGnome and find out all kinds of great actionable intelligence about my contacts.
That's brilliant. That's really brilliant. Now that's guerrilla marketing.
Don't tell anybody.
Yeah, exactly. That's great strategy. All right. Well, so far we've talked about out of office and mining out of office, but those aren't the only kind of automatic email replies you get. Some people might unsubscribe rather than using an unsubscribe list, or let's see, that maybe they left the company.
That's right.
Does it allow you to, that help in some way as well?
Yeah, so when people leave companies, particularly with our customers, it represents both a risk and an opportunity. If they're a customer that's an advocate of ours and they move on to another company, well, we have an opportunity to sell them and to engage with them to bring host analytics over to their new company. But it also represents a risk because you have an empty chair, and the person who will fill that empty chair may or may not know anything about what we do. So it's important for us to, as quickly as possible, identify when people are vacating that chair and moving to another company so that we can start running some plays here. As I mentioned before, like if it's a customer, we'll run our customer retention play as well as our expansion play. If it's somebody who's part of an active opportunity, then we may run an opportunity recovery play just to make sure that we're not letting things fall through the cracks. So that's a great point you bring up, Nancy, that when people leave companies and the email says, hey, Susie is no longer with company XYZ, we can take that and automatically do some things with it, put it through our Marketo workflow, create triggers within Salesforce, and do all the interesting things that we need to do.
Before LeadGnome, how did you learn when somebody left the company? How would you know?
We learned very, very poorly. So to be honest, anything that's done manually is going to be done hit or miss. So we did it manually, and we'd have bounce backs, we'd have out of office, notification that the person has retired or resigned. But if there was no human being on the controls checking it, it was kind of a roll of the dice to know whether anybody was actually following up on that.
Yeah, that's the thing. I don't think many people will actually try to mine out of automatic replies because it's just too resource intensive, for one, and two, a lot of them don't even think about it. Almost it's a nuisance. Okay, here's some more crap. Now we gotta remove some more people. Like our database keeps diminishing and diminishing. They don't really see it for the gold mine that it can be. And so as a result, they don't learn about somebody leaving the company and the fact that either their account could now be at risk because they're not going after the person who now is in charge, or B, it just kind of sits there idle and they're not doing what needs to be done. And meanwhile, maybe some other vendors getting into the picture because they've learned about the departure sooner.
That's right. And when you're a subscription-based model like we are, we care very much about protecting our account base.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Usually at this point, I like to ask people about some of the options that they consider, but I don't really know of anyone else that's doing the thing that kind of LeadGnome is doing. And so I guess even that goes for this question as well. Why did you choose LeadGnome? But let me ask you, instead of putting it this way, did you have some concerns? What were some of the questions that you asked Matt and his team before you decided to go forward? What do you think people will be asking and wondering about?
Yeah, so you always have questions about what's the right way to approach this data set. If you think about out of office information as like a kind of a purchase list, these people they're not asking to be put on your list, and they're not asking for you to contact them. So Matt and his team were very helpful in helping us understand what's the right way to approach these people, what's the right way to warm them up and to stay in front of them, because you can't just dump them into your marketing automation system and then, point the spam cannon at them and expect results. So, Matt was very clear with us about, how to treat these, and let's think about the best strategy for engaging with them. And so those are the types of things people should be thinking about. Although we try to do things very creatively, we also try not to irritate people, and we try to always serve them with something that's unique and useful to help them do their jobs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a good strategy if you're a marketer not to irritate people. But it happens.
It happens. It happens.
Nick, that Nick is moving in an ABM, account-based marketing strategy, right? So the way that he goes to market is different than maybe some traditional lead-based marketers. And that's one of the strengths that LeadGnome brings to the table for post-analytics.
Okay, so what you're saying is, hey, if you've got an account-based marketing approach, it behooves you to find as many people that might be involved within that same account in a buying decision.
Right. I mean, it does in a lead-based approach as well, but I think it's accentuated in an account-based approach, right? Mm-hmm. Nick mentioned early on in this conversation about coverage. He was looking to get 3 to 5 influencers, decision makers, et cetera, within each account. And that's one of the strengths of LeadGnome, because if you're sending email in and you're engaging with folks within an account, what's coming back at you from those accounts are people in those accounts in the sphere of influence. And so you have a different kind of play, a different kind of rapport building up in an account-based marketing strategy.
Makes sense. All right. Why don't we do this? Why don't we switch to you, Matt? I'll change presenters, and let's see what it looks like, and how it works. And then, Nick, if you wouldn't mind hanging on, because we might,
Sure.
I want to keep this interactive. You might come up with some points as Matt's taking us through this. That would be really helpful to know from an end user perspective.
Sounds great.
All right.
So, see your screen.
Okay, great. So I think what I'd like to do is just first start off and say that, the way that Nick and I approach the integration is the way that we approach that with most of our customers. It turns out to be quite simple, right? So when I was thinking of this, I've lived this life many times. Nick and I have shared many, many war stories as demand gen people, working within marketing, interacting with sales, etc. And so when I designed LeadGnome, I designed it to be very quick to integrate. It's I don't know, maybe 5 minutes to integrate, and then another 5 minutes to integrate with the Marketo system or your Salesforce system or whatever marketing automation system or CRM you're using. Simply set up a forwarding rule, and then the emails start flowing from your marketing mailbox where the replies come to, and they pour into your LeadGnome mailbox. So
okay, so we're looking at a login right now, but what you're saying is basically you just set up a forwarding rule so that the emails all go through LeadGnome. That's how you're able to capture mine all of that data, is because the emails kind of go through your system on the way to being delivered to the account, the company.
That's right. That's exactly right. So it's very lightweight on the integration, and it's designed so that any sales or marketing person can integrate and not have to burden IT or get involved in some heavy lifting. It's very lightweight.
Okay.
So the dashboard is also fairly lightweight because most of our customers do integrations with their systems. They're used to their CRM or their marketing automation system. That's where they live day in and day out. That's where they do their work. And we designed this to be a quick in, quick out kind of dashboard. And so customers, when they first come in, see a monthly listing. This is just a demo account with a few emails in here to show you. And we break the world up into responding contacts. Those are the people that you sent the email to, your existing leads, and they've responded to you when, say, an out of office or left the company or an unsubscribe come back to you in an automated fashion. And so if we click in here and select, sorry, we passed over into December here, so here's the November data set. And this is really what it looks like. And so each row is a different existing lead, and you can see that we categorize all of our leads. Here's one that's got an expired email. Here's a left the company, an unsubscribe, and out of office, and we'll dig into these. So one of the use cases that Nick mentioned was this opportunity and risk when somebody leaves the company. And so here's a left the company email, the details of which look like this. Paul Fulson responded from our email, and with a left the company email, and this is what it looked like. You know, I'm no longer with Crisco Systems. Please contact Bob Cranston. So what you have here is an immediate understanding, both here, but also more importantly in your marketing automation system, and you can set up programs, triggers, workflows, whatever you call them, to operate on this data that we were showing. And so now you know that Paul left, and you would most likely want to alert your LDR or SDR team so that you can engage with Paul in his new role, congratulate him, and then sell to him. He's likely to be purchasing from you again. And then really important is this ability to know who filled that position. As Nick said, who filled the empty chair? Because that has some risk involved, and you want to make sure that you build rapport with that person. In this case, it's Bob Cranston. So the way that we set up LeadGnome is you have your response here, your left the company, and if we go over to the Mind Contacts report, we'll see a corresponding replacement, which has Bob Cranston and all of his details in here as well. So that's the typical flow and report, and I wanted to show you maybe one more example. Here is an out of office from Sal, again with Crisco Systems, and we have a couple of pieces of information here that are different than a left the company. Now we know when Sal will be back in the office, and so creating an automatic task for the appropriate person within your organization to follow up with Sal is quite easy given the LeadGnome data, and we do automate those kinds of things. And we picked up an office phone. So if we look at the response, we can see that you know, we've gotten a lot of information, and in this case, in order to cover all of the things that Sal is doing, Sal provided us with 3 alternate contacts. And so if we come over to the Mind Contacts report, we will see those 3 contacts here, all related to Sal. So this is really important information.
I have a question on this, because so the ones that are mined, now those are new leads, so those get added to the database.
Correct.
So how does somebody, does somebody usually just look at this dashboard and then somebody manually does it, or it interacts? You said CRM earlier. Does this interacts with CRM, or does it, how does it interact with the database to update it?
Great question. So we use APIs for integrating with all of the popular marketing automation and CRM systems. And so typically our customers do a one-step integration. It's really just a providing of credentials in a secure way, very typical for all of these systems and how they interact. And then the data will begin to flow back and forth. And then just as you build automation within your systems today, you would do the same thing. But now, with the LeadGnome information, we have things like contact type, responding type, and so we know that, for instance, Bob replaces Paul, and in, say, Salesforce, you could literally take Paul's record, the object there, and mark him as no longer with the company. This is a very typical thing that companies do. And then point within Paul's record to Bob, so that the salesperson knows that Bob is the right person, the new primary contact, if you will, within that organization. And then Bob's full record is also placed within the system.
So that's something you can set up to do automatically?
Yeah. In fact, LeadGnome does the majority of that itself. Within marketing automation systems, we do a lot of the work, but marketing automation systems tend to have a lot of flexibility and capabilities. And so we work with a couple of strategic partners to help folks like Nick and his organization build more complex and more productive types of automations and workflows within marketing automation systems.
Okay, so I have a question for Nick now, and that is, you said that rather than, you can't just dump these names in a database and just start emailing them. So do you, for instance, based on the contact type, do you put them into a certain play? I think that's how you referred to it. Is that how you do it?
Yeah, so it depends on the title level of the person, and it also depends on whether they're part of our target account list. If it's a target account, it'll be routed, and it'll go into the account that we care about, and then we may run a play where we have a sales development representative reach out to that person directly without even emailing them. We might even have their first contact be someone just making a phone call and introducing themselves. If it's somebody who's not in our target account list, we might run them through a very light touch, high value welcome campaign, like a welcome nurture, to introduce them to Host Analytics in a very high level way, not doing any hard selling, but just understand, hey, here's Host Analytics, here's how we're helping transform finance, here's a light infographic, and just kind of warm them up to who we are. The other types of things that we could do that we plan on doing would be to route them through a flow within our marketing automation system that would maybe put them into a targeted advertising campaign, because we can do advertising based on their email address. So really, as Matt alluded to, these marketing automation systems are very powerful these days, and really the sky's the limit. Actually, the only limit is your creativity.
Yeah, I would add to that one of the plays that we tend to talk to our customers about is when there is an out of office and now you have an alternate to speak with. If they're not originally in your database, they didn't raise their hand. Sure, they're in and around the original person, but we encourage our customers to be transparent. And so we have our customers create two campaigns. One is the original, say, webinar invite, and the second is the same webinar invite with maybe two lines on top that say, we didn't want you and your company to miss out on this great event. Bob gave us your email while he was away, and so we're sending this to you. So transparency, honesty, openness like that tends to get recognized and is valued. And now you're giving them that same great call to action that you had provided to their peer.
Yeah, and imagine the customer experience as well. I mean, it's going to make such an impression when Bob, or let's see, Bob gets this nice email from you, Nick, your company, and you're the very first one he's heard from. He's probably going, man, these people are really on top of things. It really gives a great impression. And then you're in the door first as well.
Yeah, Matt's got some statistics around, how being the first person to follow up really puts you in the pole position to actually win that deal. Matt, do you remember that stat that you were talking about?
I do. So Craig Elias, I had reached out to Craig. Craig has done a ton of work in this space, and he calls them sales trigger events. And I think LinkedIn is now calling them purchase intent or something like that, types of events. And what Craig has done is he's recognized, done a lot of work on the data, and understands that if you're first in, then you can win that deal 74% of the time. I mean, that's just amazing. And he has
74?
tons of data on this, 74% of the time, because you actually are the first one. You make that great impression. You can help to sort of steer that or shape that opportunity. And so what he finds, and what he originally talked about, was when a bounce comes back, a hard bounce, that is, your email is literally rejected because that person isn't there and the email address is no longer active, that he can get 4 new opportunities out of that. And then he's first in the door, that 74% comes into play, and he wins the day. With LeadGnome, that's a left the company email. And we give folks like Craig and the people that he trains 3, 6, even 9 months time advantage over the competitors waiting for that bounce. That's significant. I mean, that's almost a whole sales cycle of time in many cases. And so Craig jumped all over this. We've done quite a few, studies on this now, where he's loving the kinds of data that he's getting and speaking to his clients about LeadGnome, just because that one use case alone is very, very powerful.
Yeah, and if anyone who's listening is interested, it's Craig Elias, and he wrote a book called Trigger Event Selling or something similar to that. So if you want to learn more about trigger events and how to work them and use them to your advantage, then definitely buy his book. He's a really interesting person and knows his stuff. To the extent that he won some $1 million award for, I don't know, creativity or something, being him.
That's right.
So yeah, definitely get his book if you're interested. All right, we are almost out of time here. So is there anything specific or particular that you want to show us that you haven't yet shown us before we start to?
I would, rather than go show another example, although they're there, I think, one of the things to recognize as well is that LeadGnome can help not just with pre-sales, but with post-sales. So a good example that I like to use is still maybe this, an out of office where you might not have had somebody's title. But now LeadGnome is able to find that and provide that to you. And what you've noticed is, hey, that end user now has a director title. They're probably our buyer, right? Or in a left a company situation, you're coming up for renewal, and in SaaS particularly, that's 100%, right? You want those renewals more than you did in the old models of license and support. And so if somebody's left the company and they were your primary contact, it's so helpful to have that replacement, because you won't run right up to the renewal time and be without somebody to call.
Yeah, and that's really tough to recover from.
Very difficult.
Introducing yourself 15 days before the renewal. It's
a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, it really is. So this makes me wonder, it's very easy. You kind of route emails through your system first. Can a salesperson do this on their own? And I guess, what's a scenario where an individual person can do this?
So we have lots of organizations that use us both from their SDR teams through their individuals. So each person on staff is sending us their individual emails, and we provide those right back into their own systems, their Salesforce or their marketing automation, depending what they work out of, and their marketing department uses us as well. So it's a combination, and we're able to discern those, feed them right back in. We can do lead to account matching, so Nick sort of alluded to that, which is, again, in an account-based marketing perspective, that is critically important. It's one of the foundational pieces of account-based marketing. So both sales and marketing can definitely use us. Nick can attest to how easy it is. It's literally a forwarding rule, so salespeople can do it quite quickly, and so can marketers.
Okay. I just was thinking this could be a lot of emails if you're also, do you weed out the company, your own internal company emails?
Yeah, that's a great question. So to give you some perspective, so the short answer is yes. We definitely weed out so that you don't get that crosstalk. And the challenge with marketing is typically volume. So hundreds, thousands of emails come back at us as marketers. With sales folks, there's volume, but the challenge really is that a salesperson's mailbox is quite noisy. And really somewhere around 10, certainly less than 20% is mineable. Are these out of office? Are even an unsubscribe or left the company? The vast majority are other types of things. And so even internal crosstalk. And so for those sales teams, the difficult challenge is finding the needle in the haystack, right? Because the vast majority are not usable. With marketing, it's almost just the opposite. It's the vast majority are usable, but the volume is so high, it would take so many people to go mine that. In both cases, LeadGnome can go and identify them, mine the appropriate ones, the ones that are usable, and it just ignores the rest. And for salespeople, that's great. You completely skip over all the data entry, and for marketers, you get all this great marketing and sales intelligence.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, with that, I think we probably will end it because we're right up against the time here. And Nick and Matt, I just say thank you very much for participating. It's so helpful for our audience to hear about different scenarios and challenges that people like them are facing and how you went about overcoming it. So thank you very much for sharing some of your competitive advantages here that you've gotten from LeadGnome.
Thanks. Don't tell anybody, Nick. Thanks a lot, Nancy.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. And to everyone else, I hope you can join us again next week. And again, go to our website, to the events menu, and you can go ahead and sign up for the series. Have a great day, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thanks.